Hello, we are going to go over this Chapter 5 test review. The first one, we have 3x plus 5y equals 8 and y equals 4x minus 72. As soon as I see that, I'm thinking substitution because I have a y equals right there. And whenever I have a y equals or an x equals, that should be substitution. I take that bottom equation, plug it into the top one, and get 3x plus 5. Instead of y, I write 4x minus 72 equals 8. Distribute, combine like terms. They're on the same side of the equal sign. Add 360 to both sides. Divide by 23, and I got x equals 16. Take that and plug it into the bottom equation and get y equals 4 times 16 minus 72. Y equals negative 8. So my solution is 16, negative 8. On number 2, I'm thinking elimination because everything is lined up. My x's are lined up, my y's are lined up, and my numbers are lined up. I need to create opposite coefficients. I have positive 3 here. I need negative 3 up on the top. So I multiply the whole equation by negative 3. Make sure you do all 3 terms by negative 3. That gives me negative 3x minus 9y equals 15. I now have opposite coefficients. I can cross those off, and I add them together and get negative 5y equals 5. I don't know if you just heard a husky bark there, but he thinks I'm talking to him. Divide both sides by negative 5. Y equals negative 1. I took that and I plugged it into the top equation and got x plus 3 times negative 1 equals negative 5. Add 3 to both sides and you get negative 2. So my solution is negative 2, negative 1. On number 3, I needed to create opposite coefficients. I decided to eliminate my y's, so I multiplied the top one by negative 2 and the bottom one by positive 3. It doesn't matter which one you make negative. I could have made that a negative 3 and a positive 2. I just want to create something that's going to cancel out. And what happens is everything cancels out and I get 0 equals 42, which is going to be a no solution because that's a false statement. On number 4, one of the problems here, things aren't lined up. So I need to take this negative 5x and add it to both sides. And then I took that 70 and I moved it to the other side by subtracting. That's why the 5x is positive here and the 70 is negative over here. Add them up and I get 8x equals negative 16 or x equals negative 2. I took that and I plugged it into the top equation, the original one, and got y equals negative 10. On number 5, decided to eliminate my x's. Multiplied the top one by 5. That gives me 10. I need to get a negative 10 down here, so I multiplied that by negative 2. My x's cancel, add them together and get 5y equals 15. Divide by 5, y equals 3. Took that and I plugged it into, looks like I plugged it into the top equation and got 2x plus 3 times 3 equals 3. That right there is 9. Subtract 9 from both sides, divide by 2, and get negative 3. All right, number 6. It's kind of a fun problem. Everything is really the same problem. You were just doing the same thing, both graphing, substitution, and elimination. And if we do everything right, it should come out to be the same answer. Well, on this one, though, I needed to put it into slope-intercept form. So I subtracted the x and divided by 2. Here, I subtracted the 2x and divided by 8. Reduced my fractions. And the graph is down here. And it's really hard to see because it's a little bit off the graph. Oops, dogs are barking again. And that is going to be 12, negative 7. I went to the right 12, down 7. And that's one of the problems with graphing is it can sometimes not be the most accurate. Just a second, I'm going to pause this video and a couple dogs are going to go outside. All right, for the substitution, I took that top equation and I solved for x. I subtracted the 2y over to the other side. Then I substituted it into the bottom equation. Distribute my 2. Combine my like terms. Negative 4y and 8y. And I kind of did this in one step, and then I also added 4 to both sides. Got 4y equals negative 28. Divide by 4, y equals negative 7. Plug it back in, and got x equals 12. The elimination was probably the easiest one on here. I decided to eliminate my x's, so I multiplied that top equation by negative 2. And add them together, and I got 4y equals negative 28. Y equals negative 7. Plugged it back into the top equation, and I got 12, negative 7. So I got the same answers all the way through. If I would just seen this problem, though, I would have gone straight to elimination. All right, number 7, you want to graph that. Well, that first graph, the y-intercept is negative 1, which is right here. And my slope is negative 3, so you can go down 3, right 1, which is going to be right about there. Or you could also go up 3, left 1. And it's going to be a dotted line, shaded above, because it's greater than. On this one, it might help to put it into slope-intercept form first. Move that 2x over to the other side. My y-intercept is 2. My slope is 2, up 2, right 1. Solid line, and I'm shading above because it's greater than. And where it overlaps is this part right here, and that's my final solution. Number 8, the answer is D. On number 9, my work's all over the place, so I'm going to kind of talk you through it. The first thing I did was I came up with an equation, or actually 2 equations. I'm using squash, used Q for that, and zucchinis I used as a Z. So 5 squash and 2 zucchinis cost $1.32. That's where the first equation comes from. 3 squash and 1 zucchini cost 75 cents. That's where the second one comes from. Then I needed to create opposite coefficients. So I actually multiplied that bottom one by negative 2. And then I end up over here. So I multiplied that bottom equation by negative 2. My z's cancel out. Negative q equals negative 18, or 0.18. Q equals 0.18. Well, took that 0.18 and I plugged it into the bottom equation, solved for z. 3 times 0.18 is 0.54. Subtract that from 0.75, and I got 0.21. Got to be careful, though, what they're asking. What would the cost of a single squash and 2 zucchini be? Well, a single squash is going to be 18 cents. 2 zucchini is 42. Add them together, and you get 60. All right. On 10, the trick on this one is really setting up the correct equations. So you go to a nursery and buy some spring bulbs planted in your yard. 30 tulip and 34 daffodil. That was in the front yard. Cost $237. That's where that equation comes from. Then in the backyard, 22 tulips and 38 daffodil bulbs, and I spent $213 in the backyard. That's where that comes from. I would use elimination by this one. Multiply that top one by negative 22, the bottom by 30, and go from there. If you do it correctly, you should get $4.50 for the tulip, $3 for the daffodil. Number 11, another word problem. So I'm using M for microscope and D for dissection kits. So 30 microscopes and 60 dissection kits were ordered. and the cost was $3,420. That's where the first equation comes from. The second equation, a microscope costs 4 times as much as a dissection, so M equals 4D. On this one, you should automatically think substitution because the M is solved for. I'm going to plug it in right there. And if you do everything correctly, the microscope should be 76, and the dissection kit is 19. On number 12, I put you as an X and your friend as a Y. And I think once you see that, it should be pretty self-explanatory. On number 13, this one was a little bit trickier. I did the vertical line first, and I know it's going to be X is greater than, because it's shaded to the right, greater than or equal to, because it's going to be solid. And then on the next one, my y-intercept is -2. That's where that comes from. And I had to go a little bit off the graph. I went up 1 to the right 7. And that's where my slope comes from, 1/7. And it's a solid line shaded below, so it has to be a less than or equal to. And 14, I'm just going to put up the answer. Let you read it. Hope you enjoyed.